All right, everybody, good afternoon and welcome on back to all of us live in the Cyber Group trading room and streaming across social media, Facebook and YouTube, the likes. Welcome on back to our afternoon meeting. Let's get a quick chat back to begin. Make sure everyone can hear me loud and clear. Reporting from home right now. We are doing our weekly Traders Talk workshop just before I was in the office to conduct that, made the small 10-minute drive back home. Great to see everybody, at least. Bonnie, Ken, Mark H., Cliff, Grant, Jim, John, Darylene. Great to see you all. And of course, to all of our members here streaming across social media. So guys, let's begin right away. I mean, it's been a pretty flat day in the markets, aside from the gap up and run up early in pre-market. I should say we had a small move up going into the late morning, but otherwise it's been kind of flat. We're hoping for at least some sort of move up or down, rather up than down at least, heading into the end of this day. But aside from that, we did pretty well just across the cruise lines, the airlines, as has been the case. But of course, a couple of others that made some big runs. So let's recap those that we ended up trading and calling out in the Cyber Group room early on. And then, as always, we'll look to rebuild our list for the afternoon. So number one, I mean, just to begin, guys, I mean, it's hard to not begin with GMP. What's happening here? Guess I'm good. Hard not to begin without discussing GMPX. So GMPX, we saw pop super early in pre-market. It was on our morning watch list at least. And we ended up seeing this make a nice little run. It took a little while for it to do so. But we ended up seeing shortly after a pop and a pullback, this finding big support roughly around the opening bell print, $3.60. From there, a nice break and run over 4. I saw one of our new students, Lancelot, ended up picking up about 40 cents on his trade, ended up jumping in over 4, and he got out pretty much near the highs, right around 450. I think 445 was his exit. So that was a nice trade by Lancelot. A few of us ended up taking that trade all together. We covered that in our weekly Traders Talk workshop that we just finished up, guys. So that recording of Traders Talk should be up on the dashboard just to all of our students here, at least by the end of the day today. It's not up there right now. It will be by the end of the day today. Nevertheless, GNPX, though, what goes up comes back down. So, that was to be expected. There was a comment I made in the trading room just before saying that one of our trades that I'll mention in a moment, it was the least surprising move of the day. Same to be said for GMPX, right? Popped and ran earlier. Normally a stock that makes one big run normally doesn't make a second big move going into the close, or just as big, rather, I should say. Well, at the same time, if it's not breaking higher, well, it's only to go one other way. So it ended up flattening out over 380, broke below 380, and the rest is history. So that's not surprising whatsoever. Another stock that I should say at the same time, very expected break. MVIS. Now, this again was a stock that we had on our morning watch list as well as the pre-market watch list. We did really well on this trade just from yesterday and actually just from Friday at the end of last week. But again, same rules apply. So this made a nice pop early in the morning from 150 to 180. But eventually failed to break higher, came back down. It was probably a decent play, maybe if you were catching off the bottom, scalping it for a few cents, right? But, at the end of the day, same thing, right? We ended up seeing this eventually break down. Now, we ended up seeing a couple of us just jump in as a great short opportunity. So I don't know if it's hard to borrow from the broker that you're using, with TradeStation at least. It doesn't say HB. It says F next to the symbol. So I think that they either failed to meet listing requirements or something of that nature. Big drop off. And if you were able to short this stock, man, that would have been the big play today. It took a while for you to get the drop, but it, of course, paid off. And mind you, a nice bounce right now off of a buck. So given the range even down and up right now, guys, I'll come back to this trade at least for the afternoon or at the end of the list. I'll be honest, I wasn't going to put this on our list, but the fact this thing just bounced so nicely off a buck and it's already at a $1.30 just about, that's a pretty significant pop. So, hopefully there's more life left to this trade, at least going into the afternoon. All right. Aside from that, though, again, we did pretty well on the cruise lines, airlines, etc. More so, I'd say Norwegian Cruise Lines and Carnival. So NCLH, big drop going into the pre-market. News came out, I think, it was from earlier. Let me get the news that I had from before. I deleted Fausto's private chat box. That's why. All right. So news came out regarding the NCLH stock in relation to just concerns moving forward. So it said Norwegian Cruise 8K shows updated risk factors to include comment from the company's independent public accounting firm for substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. So obviously not a good headline and a pretty big reaction from the street. A huge drop off early in pre-market. We covered this trade also in Traders Talk, guys, to let you know. I just posted the news here in the chat board at least, and then I'll also actually do the same for all of us across social media. Make this post right now in relation to NCLH. So NCLH, what happened after the open? Little shake, but eventually broke down big, broke underneath big support at the time, 1275. From there, I ended up jumping in on the short. Obviously, left a lot of money on the table, but this gave us a lot of money, a lot of opportunity to work with. So, I ended up jumping out, jumped back in as it ended up crashing underneath 12, and then the same thing again around 1150. But eventually, kind of flattened out a bit, just over support, or not flattened out, but started trading within a range. And you can see it's held pretty nicely off the 11 level. So, this Norwegian Cruise Lines did very nice as a short early on, but I'm gonna put this back on our list. It's a very heavily traded stock today, trading 125 million shares by 2:30 in the afternoon. So a little bit more than its average, I'd say. So normally I wouldn't put a stock this heavily traded on our list, but given the range, given the volume being traded even at this point in the afternoon, we'll see if this can make a new breakdown or a new pop back up, perhaps. CCL Carnival Cruise Line, same deal, where it ended up breaking down below the opening bell print, that yellow line I have up there at 1425. Ended up dropping off pretty nicely just again after it broke under 14, held that as resistance, and again, same thing, pulled back a bit. Not as volatile, not as quick, I should say, not as fast as NCLH so far this afternoon, but they tend to move similarly. Same to be said, Royal Caribbean Cruise RCL. RCL, I feel like, might have one of the better setups, at least of those. Not a whole lot of volume to cut through off 38. If this breaks below 38 here, this might be a nice drop off coming up. So NCLH I'll put on our main list, and then RCL, CCL just kind of on the side for right now. All right, so we've had a couple of others. Chegg, also a big move. I was going to get to that as we go through the gainers list. Chegg ended up breaking all-time highs today. I think that was off of earnings as well, right? Ended up seeing them make a huge jump up early in the morning and continue to push throughout the day. Up until recent, ended up making a high of the day, 61.33, and it pulled back. So trading within a dollar range, essentially between 59 and 60 here this afternoon. It is shortable. It's trading a hell of a lot of volume right now. So you know what? I'm going to put Chegg on our main list too, just for now, for our more level 4 to 5 traders here. All right, so we'll go from top to bottom. CLSK, how about this? I'd be remiss to not mention CLSK as our big move from today. Of course, it's the top percent gainer right now. Of course, pulling back at least off the top off at 455. But we ended up seeing this breakout nicely. It took a little while, but pushed through 2. Ended up making a spike up towards almost 3 at the time. And then from there, slowly but surely, this thing ended up kind of having a life of its own, where it ended up breaking high of the day off of 280, pushed up to 3, broke out pretty sharply. And as you could see, of course, moved up very nicely to 455, like I'd said. Well, eventually, it pulled back down. So, again, normally a stock that makes one big run up like we see here on CLSK, I would not expect for this to, pull back as sharply as it has been, to hold support, then run up all the way through 450 perfectly into the close. It just doesn't happen as often. So for right now, I'll at least put this on the side, but this was absolutely one of the better plays so far today, and actually more in the early afternoon. We did very well on this trade this afternoon so far. All right, PTLA buyout right away. We saw it happened on the other one yesterday, but absolute flatline. Not worth the time. RTTR, beautiful squeeze up here too. I missed out on this trade myself, but Ritter Pharmaceuticals broke up to 50, broke much higher from that point. I guess for the couple of gap ups in pre-market just over the last month or so, you could see those red candles, those big red candles where it ended up gapping up early and then dumped off shortly after. I guess for all of those days, it's had a nice run up so far. again, same thing. Ended up making a big move up early. Maybe I'll come back to this just at the tail end, but probably not. Going to put this on our main list. Unless if this thing ends up making a push up to 65 sooner than later, and breaking through, that's how I'll reconsider. Another cheapy BPMX, same deal. All right, GMPX, we ended up, of course, mentioning this just earlier, pulling back, not going to put this on our main list for now. This ADVM ran nicely after the market opened. Made a pop going into the late morning, a double top off the high of the day there, seemingly around 1915. And it's kind of fallen off since. This spread isn't too big. The orders are kind of light on the book, all across the bid and the ask. I don't mind the pattern. I mean, it's near a near triple top, actually, at the high of the day. I'll come back to this. It also is shortable. If it ends up crapping out the complete other way, then I'd say there's a hell of a lot of opportunity at least to try and short it. So even for that, or I should say maybe for that reason, I'll add it to the list. AKBA, just kind of inconsistent with a trend. A little pop up to 1225 earlier and it pulled back, trying to squeeze back up, but nothing really too much to write home about on that one. Chegg, just given the range, given the volume, still traded right now. This one is on our list already. This TGTX, you know what? I'm definitely going to put this on our list. It's a nice trend so far this afternoon. Trading about 23 to 25,000 shares per minute right now, making a push up towards, I mean, right now it's the high of the day, technically. Ended up making a huge gap up in pre-market and then a spike and then pull back. So, that's why the 5-minute chart looks a little funky. But yeah, big gap from the end of the day yesterday from 1250 up towards just about 20. So leading into the market open, it pulled back, moved up, flattened out, and at least now getting our second wind at least here. So TGTX, I definitely like. See if this can blast right through 1650 here. Another cheapie. We called this one out earlier, TTI. We called it out in pre-market. So actually, to go back on this one quick, we called this one out, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was too early for 7 o'clock. Right over here when it was breaking higher here at the time. That's what I remember. So from that point, moved up nicely. But of course, you could see what happens with a lot of these cheapies below $1. Another very expensive one here on the other side of things, Wayfair. Ended up popping, running in pre-market big, pulled back at the open. Seemed like it was a decent short opportunity just based on the trend. Pretty flat for right now. Big spread, obviously, very expensive. All right, so we'll kind of skim through, see what else we can get here, guys. SCON, nice recent pop. I like to see that out of everything. So out of all the cheapies, maybe that SCON makes the cut. ACHC not doing much. Let me just go through the rest of the gainer side here quick. DBD, some familiar names, at least for myself. This one had earnings going into today, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, it didn't really make as... I mean, it was a clean pop, but there was so much else moving otherwise. I didn't focus on this, really. All right, what we'll do is hop over to the losers, guys. Let me know if there's anything else you would want me to check out. I see a couple of comments just in the chat board now. I'll get to those in a moment. NCLH, of course, on our list already. From the last time I was looking at this, it was right around 1140. It was kind of squeezing up here a bit, but pulled back down pretty sharply down towards minor support that we had from earlier, 1125. So look to see if this one can end up pulling back towards 11, perhaps, with the lower high going into the afternoon. All right, bunch of crap hard to borrow aside from this WRK trade. I guess I'll call this work, not to be confused with work. And if I'm not mistaken, not to be confused with works. Oh, they delisted WORX. That's pretty interesting. Huh. I guess we don't have to worry about that symbol anymore. Well, getting back to WRK, one of the top percent losers this afternoon. down 16%. It is shortable, and we were calling this out earlier too, just off the breakdown off of 25.75. So this has done pretty nicely for us so far this afternoon. WRK. See if we could follow this trend lower into the close. Got MNK Pharma Company. We knew they were coming out with earnings too. Unfortunately, we didn't really trade this. Not much of a trade to even focus on. Dropped back a little bit. That was pretty much it. I guess it's squeezing up off 280. PBI, I guess, kind of trending down now, but again, kind of same deal. NAT, if you can get the shares to short, maybe. Cars, CARS, not to be confused with Car Avis, cars.com here. You know what? This one's shortable. It's at the lows of the day, which I'm a big fan of. It's not really trading a whole lot of volume at this point in the afternoon. That's my only gripe on this. So, you know what? For now, I'm going to pass on this, at least in the meantime. All right. You know what? I think that just about does it, guys. Going through the losers list, at least here. I'll run my scan, see if there's anything else otherwise. But if you guys want to let me know if there's anything else, let me know. Type it in the chat board. Type it across social media, Facebook, YouTube. Let's see. From Bonnie to begin. Oxy earnings tonight. Think it will react well to that? I have no idea. But yes, we were talking earlier. We have a lot of earnings coming out after the bell today that we'll talk about further in our post-market update. Oxy, one of many that I just typed earlier in the chat. Ken says disregard his comments. No problem there. CLVS, though, just to mention, another big one, another big earnings report tonight. So that'll definitely be a good stock to follow for tomorrow morning. Ben, Lyft. So yeah, Lyft. Let's talk about Lyft. Ben posts a profit, but I wanted to mention Lyft. So news came out, I think it was in relation to like a California law, something about Lyft mislabeling their drivers as independent contractors. That was the news that Ben posted in the chat board. Just took it right from Benzinga. So ended up making a nice drop off this afternoon. Lyft, that is. Lyft and Uber. I think the news was in relation to Lyft, but the sympathy led to a drop off on Uber as well. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm going to put Lyft on our watch list. Forgot about this. So I appreciate Ben posting his profit to remind me. So yeah, double bottom as of right now off the low of the day, 26.80. Pretty tasty setup there. I like that. All right, guys. Michael says Penn at 16. I know that's one of Michael's bread and butter stocks. Penn National Gaming, that is. We've been following that just over the last month and a half. Why does that always happen? Let's see. It's moving up nicely, Michael. Absolutely moving up nicely. Not up or down a whole lot, so I wouldn't have found it on the gainers side, but I have to say, very, very steady trend. On the way up to 16, it's a good setup. Speaking of that, though, let me also just run through one or two others that we did talk about just before this meeting started. PCG, near the high, or at the high of the day going into the close. It's pretty flat for the meantime, but don't be surprised if we end up calling this one out later on in the trading room if we don't really focus on as much from the list after like 3:15. All right, so PCG potentially just being at the highs of the day going into the afternoon, so kind of similar to Penn in that sense, Mike. All right, let's go back, I guess, to the side list. We have really not too many on the main watch list so far this afternoon. I think 5 in total I put on. That's just it. MVIS already spiked up so much. So my question is it going to go right back up to 150? Maybe. My answer, to be honest, is I don't think so. So even if it pushes up an extra 5 or 8 cents, I think that there will be better trades to focus on. Now, if it ends up pulling back, perhaps we'll have more opportunity on the short side. But at least for now, I'm not going to put Mavis or MVIS on our watch list. I'm calling it Mavis. Ken says dropping to 50 cents. Well, I'll tell you, Ken, that would be a home run trade for that price stock. So speak it, and hopefully it will happen. RCL, again, great setup, similar to NCLH. So, perhaps just follow those in tandem. I'll put NCLH just on the main special list for now. And then finally, ADVM, the last one on the side list, so to say. potentially seeing this squeak back up towards 19. Since we last looked at it, it has bounced. So, you know what? We're not really maxed out on our list this afternoon. I don't have 13 or 15 stocks like I normally would at this point. We'll put ADVM on our list. All right. So, you know what, guys? Efficient. I like that. Not too big, not too little, just right. This is perfect as far as just, a number of stocks to follow. Of course, aside from this list, though, there are plenty of others. Again, Royal Caribbean Cruise, Carnival are moving with NCLH to a great degree. Uber moving with Lyft, of course, like we were talking about just before. And aside from that, if we end up finally getting some direction in the market going into the end of this day, perhaps there will be others that end up making a nice run. Like, again, Michael called out Penn at 16. Good setup, I have to say. Looks like the Dow is beginning to make a small little inch up. Dow's up 40 points since this meeting started. So hopefully blue skies ahead, guys, going into the end of this day. All right, so in total, only 6 stocks to work with, but I'm sure plenty more otherwise. So last one from Dennis, AKBA here in the chat board at the buzzer. I'm not a fan of it just yet, Dennis. I like the trend up. I'm not a fan of those wacky volume spikes. And, for right now, if this can move up towards 12 and break through, I think that could be a good setup. So, perhaps if we end up seeing this run up to 12 and make the pop, then we'll reconsider. Donnie says CLSK running. Whoa, look at that. Maybe I'll eat my words on this trade, right? Just said I wouldn't expect this to make a second big run going into the close. All right, Donnie, I like the heads up here. Let's see, something like that makes me reconsider. Now, if there is one area of hope that I had on this trade for this afternoon, it would be based on the daily chart. Look at the range that CLSK has kind of moved from back in like mid to late 2018 to right now. And reverse splits could be factored in, mind you. They easily could be. Regardless, just even with that in mind, seeing a stock with this type of range on the daily chart could lead to a pretty explosive move. So, CLSK has already moved up 180% plus. I don't know how much more we could expect for it to run up towards, but you know what? This recent pop allows me to just say, you know what? We'll focus on this a bit further. So I like the heads up, Donnie. Good call. Resistance at 4. You would imagine a resistance at $4 at least on this trade. So no surprise. This thing moved up, smacked its head, and right back down for right now, at least. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys. So I think that we're good for the meantime here. 2:53 p.m. is the time for right now. I'm going to get going. I'm going to post and tweet the picks for the meantime. For anyone watching across Facebook and YouTube, if you guys would like to learn more about what we offer here at Cyber Trading University, the online trading room here, or our online classroom, feel more than free to give a call to the number down below on the banner, and one of our educational advisors will give you more detail. All right. Aside from that, for all of our students here working with us in the trading room, well, of course, we have a nice afternoon ahead, guys. Let's try and make some money together going into this Tuesday close. Take care.